The relationship types that are several that we have, and the MDM supports one-to-many and many-to-many. And I'm going to confuse you a little bit right now because I'm going to expand this. So the hub supports one-to-many and many-to-many relationships. But notice what it says, and hierarchical relationships between records and an object. Let me put a parenthesis on that. We also support hierarchical relationships, which I sometimes call them affiliations, so that we don't get confused with the kind of relationships we're talking about now. What is a hierarchical relationship? Well, Informatica MDM, Master Data Management System, has a component called Hierarchy Manager. If you had purchased that and are licensed to use it, we can also create hierarchical-based objects. We are not discussing that at all in this course. We have a separate class that says, how can I create based objects that are hierarchical in nature, and also how do I use them? So please remember that's a separate class and a separate license component, and we are not talking about that. But does the MDM Hub support hierarchical relationships? The answer is yes. And one more thing about this, on the relationships. We're going to define these relationships, one-to-many and many-to-many, but also that's not all the types that we have. We also have sibling relationships, grandchildren relationships. But again, similar to what I said about hierarchy relationships, those relationships are defined in another component called Data Director. Informatica Data Director is an additional component for data governance. It sits on top of the hub, and in another module in this course, I will have a few words to talk about that, but I don't have a lot of lecture on that in this. Since it's a separate class, I'll briefly say what Data Director is, what's the value, and in one of my demos, I will show you Data Director. But for those of you that are interested, just be aware, it's called Informatica Data Director. It's our data governance tool, and you can take another class for this. So now going to what we're talking about, relationships, one-to-many and many-to-many. Very straightforward. You have a based object that somehow has some sort of relationship with a child-based object. If there is no relationship, say you have customer, and it has the customer contact and address, then there's no reason to go and create an address-based object, and therefore there's no reason to have a relationship. In the way we're doing the labs, and it's more realistic of life, we have a customer-based object and an address-based object. Therefore, we got to tell it how the relationships are. Pretty much like you would do in any kind of database or data modeling system.